First technique. So we're going to work on we're starting with the Tojutsu Jissen Gata, right? And the Tojutsu Jissen Gata, this is not the Kodachi Kata, which I talked about how that's kind of the older aspect, what we see in Tomoryu, right? Okay. So we're not talking specifically about that, although a lot of the techniques are extremely similar, and there are a handful of them that you see in the Tojutsu Jissen Gata that are the same that's on the Kodachi, the older scrolls, okay? But I'm not going to try to complicate things right now. We're looking at the Tojutsu Jissen Gata, okay? Now, when we're doing this kind of training, I want to throw this one aspect in. So you're going to hear me speak a lot about the scrolls, and I'm going to use the Bansenshukai and maybe some other historical references as well, because I'm trying to paint a good picture for your guys' understanding of ninjutsu, right? In the Bansenshukai, Fujibayashi states, he says, I don't have the time or the space to write all the details down here, but you should train yourself in Kenjutsu, swordsmanship, and Iai, or sword drawing. You know, he's saying, I'm not going to write down how to do it here, this isn't the place. But he clearly states, you should train yourself in Kenjutsu and Iaijutsu. And that's one of those things where you get this line about, like, when people talk about, well, what did the ninja do when they fought? I think it's an absolute ridiculous argument. You could look at the time period and tell what they did when they fought, right? But the one thing is for certain, in all of the texts, we know that there's a common, right? So, and that is they all fought with the sword. That was the weapon of the time. Although I think on the battlefield, the spear and the bow and arrow was the main tools on the field of battle, right? But the ninja weren't actually on the battlefield duking it out. They were behind enemy lines. They were the spies. They were the ones gathering information. They were the, that kind of thing. So when you deal with a ninja combat, for the lack of a better word, and I know that word will probably cause a ruckus on the internet, but when you're dealing with ninja combat, swordsmanship was going to be the weapon that they would have used the most. So even in the Bansenshukai, Fujibayashi states, I don't have this isn't the place for me to put it here, but you need to be training in Kenjutsu and Iaijutsu. When I'm in my position like this, and I'm in my particular position, go ahead and step in with the ski. I'm stepping back, I'm cutting the wrist, cutting down, and I'm striking, I'm skiing up. And that can go through the throat, right? And then you purse down, and then you come back through, right? So the idea, whether you're right side back or left side back, that's how you practice. You should go both sides. But when you're here, and I'll do this for the camera, as it comes in, when you step up and off, you're in that Jodan position. Push down, ski up, then back down, and then come back through. I'm walking like this, and I'm like this. He goes to draw, and as he's pulling his sword to draw, right, that's when I'm going to capture that, and I'm going to pull that. You see what I mean? I'm pulling. 1, 2. Now see how you get this? See, that's kind of hooked in there? There's your tagatami right there as you're cutting in. You catch what I mean? So you're wanting him to be like that, and right when they go for that draw, that's when you catch. Does that make sense? So we're here, and as I walk up like this, he goes for the draw, I capture his hand, and as I capture the hand, I pull a hand 1 here, and I roll that down, and that's what gets that cut. Okay. So, right, so in the Bansenshukai, Fujibayashi says that the principles for Kenjutsu and the principles for Ninjutsu, right, are the same. He makes that very clear. He says that you can't, when you're doing swordsmanship, right, when you're doing Kenjutsu, you can't strike your opponent without them moving in, right? He says, he goes on to say, like, stupid people try to strike their opponent when they're not coming in. But the principles of Kenjutsu is you want to strike at the moment that they come into you. Basically take advantage of the situation. Does that make sense? But he also says those principles still remain in ninjutsu. In ninjutsu, if the enemy doesn't move, you don't move either. And I think that's important. So when you're looking at these old kata, these Tojutsu kata that we're kind of looking at here, go think about that concept. You know what I mean? Because they're doing something which gives you the opportunity to take control or take the gap in the enemy's defense, right? Sneak it into that gap and taking advantage of that situation so that you can be victorious in that moment. So keep that in mind. I think that's kind of, it's one of those deep moments where he talks about how, you know, the principles of Kenjutsu and the principles of Ninjutsu, you know, they're the same. Right? And in Kenjutsu, you want to strike when the opponent closes in. So when he goes to shoot on, right, and you'll shoot on, and as he comes in, could come in, that's why I want to do something. I want to do something when he comes in. I don't want to be the one to try to attack him if he's not doing anything, right? And then he says, principles for ninjutsu is the same. If the enemy don't move, you don't move either. And I think when you're dealing with stealth, specifically Inen type shadow, stealthy Nen, I think you can understand where that tactic holds, you know, a lot of weight, right? Yeah.